I stepped into that television courtroom knowing I was untouchable. 8 years I'd ruled Willowbrook Estates, turning HOA rules into weapons, breaking families who dared to question me. Today was supposed to be another easy win, another homeowner humiliated for daring to plant flowers without my permission. I'd humiliated marriages, drained bank accounts, chased decent people from their homes. But as I stood before Judge Judy, my manicured finger aimed at her robe, I made the mistake that would end everything. "You're being stupid, Judge," I said. "You clearly don't understand HOA law." The silence crashed down like a hammer. Her eyes went cold, that famous death stare that made lawyers wet themselves on national television. I didn't know she'd spent the previous night digging through police databases and court records. I didn't know she'd uncovered my past. I didn't know the woman I'd just called stupid held secrets that could send me to prison. Maria Rodriguez sat trembling in the plaintiff's chair, clutching a folder of my harassment letters. For 2 years, I'd targeted her family over grass half an inch too long, Christmas decorations left 1 day past deadline, children's chalk drawings on their own driveway. $15,000 in fines and legal fees had nearly bankrupted them. But Maria found courage I hadn't expected, and she brought me to this courtroom, unaware she was about to witness television's most savage judicial takedown. Judge Judy leaned back, a faint smile on her lips. 35 years on the bench had given her a supernatural ability to spot criminals and sociopaths within 30 seconds. My entitled posture, my dismissive eye roll at Maria's tears, the casual cruelty when I described violations, every alarm bell in the judge's head was clanging. The audience felt the tension shift. Retirees who'd watched Judge Judy for decades sensed something different. I'd opened with a masterclass in condescension, calling Maria the type who doesn't respect property values, claiming her flowers were destroying our beautiful community. I'd rolled my eyes when Maria described her children, asking why the mean lady kept sending scary letters. The audience's murmurs only made me more defiant, more certain I was the victim of liberal snowflakes. Judge Judy listened like a predator waiting to strike. She asked gentle questions about my background, my HOA qualifications, my understanding of property law. I answered with increasing arrogance, convinced I was educating this stupid TV judge about real neighborhood governance. Then she pressed me on the excessive fines, and I made my fatal mistake. "Judge, with all due respect, you're being stupid," I said. "These people need to learn that actions have consequences. Maybe if you understood HOA law instead of just being a TV judge, you'd see I'm protecting property values." The words were still in the air when I felt the room shift. What I didn't know was that Judge Judy had been a family court judge in New York for 25 years before television. What I didn't know was that her research team had uncovered a pattern far beyond overzealous HOA enforcement. What I didn't know was that calling her stupid was about to trigger the most devastating criminal background reveal in courtroom history. I sat in the defendant's chair with the posture of someone who'd never faced consequences. My designer handbag clutched like a shield. Behind my confident facade, cracks were already showing as the judge's questions grew pointed. But my arrogance was too deep for me to recognize the danger. This was supposed to be a simple case about unauthorized landscaping. Instead, it was about power, control, and what happens when someone with a dark past gets authority over their neighbors. Maria had made one mistake. She'd questioned my authority at a board meeting, asked why violation notices targeted some families and ignored others. That single question marked her for destruction, and I'd spent 2 years proving that crossing me came with devastating consequences. My husband, Robert, had retreated into his work as complaints mounted, leaving me free to terrorize without interference. What the Rodriguez family had sunk their life savings into a dream home in Willowbrook Estates. Instead, they became prisoners, afraid to let children play in the yard, afraid to decorate for holidays, afraid to park their car wrong. Legal fees drained their savings. Maria's husband wanted to sell and move, but she refused to let me drive another family out. She had no idea she was about to watch me be destroyed. Judge Judy's research team had spoken to former neighbors, tracked down previous HOA board members who'd mysteriously resigned after working with me. They uncovered a pattern that went far beyond suburban power trips into something genuinely criminal. And now, with the audience sensing something unprecedented building, the judge leaned forward with that smile that meant someone was about to be annihilated. To understand what unfolded, you need to know who I really am. At 52, I'd spent 2 decades perfecting petty power. Born middle class in Ohio, I was that child who tattled on classmates and demanded managers as a teenager. My first real authority came when I married Robert Mitchell, a successful insurance executive whose income let me quit my bank teller job and focus on what I called community involvement, what everyone else recognized as professional busybody behavior. When we moved to Willowbrook Estates 8 years ago, I set my sights on the HOA board immediately. I campaigned on maintaining property values, which sounded reasonable until you realized my standards involved measuring grass with rulers and conducting surprise garbage can inspections. Within 6 months, 3 board members resigned, unable to stomach my authoritarian approach. I transformed routine meetings into judicial proceedings, acting as judge, jury, and executioner. What made me dangerous was my complete lack of empathy combined with obsessive attention to detail. I kept files on every resident, their work schedules, visitors, daily routines. I knew which families were struggling financially and targeted them with unaffordable fines. I knew which residents were elderly or easily intimidated and used their fear to maintain compliance. Maria Rodriguez represented everything I despised, a hard-working nurse who'd scraped together her down payment through double shifts and sacrifice. She embodied the American dream that threatened my established order. Her family brought life and joy, children's laughter, weekend barbecues, genuine community spirit that made my rigid rules seem petty and vindictive. When she questioned my enforcement at that board meeting, she unknowingly declared war. Her ordeal started small, a polite letter about unauthorized flowers, then escalated. When Maria tried to compromise, I interpreted any negotiation as the violations multiplied, each carefully crafted to maximize financial damage while staying just within legal bounds. Her husband, Carlos, begged her to comply, but Maria had seen what happened to other families who submitted, and she refused to let her children believe bullies always win. Judge Judy Schindlin, at 78, built her reputation on seeing through lies and manipulation. 25 years as a New York family court judge, handling over 20,000 cases, domestic abusers, con artists, deadbeat parents, pathological liars. Something about me triggered her most powerful instincts. During our brief pre-show meeting, I displayed the casual cruelty and manipulative charm she associated with truly dangerous people. Her research team spoke to former neighbors from my previous addresses. The criminal background check revealed everything, transforming this from a simple HOA dispute into something much darker. Judge Judy spent 35 years learning to trust her instincts. And every instinct screamed that I wasn't just a neighborhood bully, but someone whose behavior had crossed lines that could send me to prison. The stage was set. She had the evidence, the experience, the righteous anger. I had no idea my years of escaping consequences were about to end in the most public, humiliating way possible. The case opened exactly as I expected. Judge Judy reviewed the basic facts of the flower garden violation. I delivered my flawless opening statement about community standards and property values. Judge, what we have here is a resident who believes the rules don't apply to her. Mrs. Rodriguez planted an unauthorized garden. When reasonable people pointed out her violation, she became belligerent. Maria's emotional testimony, breaking down describing her children, asking why the mean lady kept sending scary letters, bounced right off my self-righteous armor. I rolled my eyes and muttered about people playing the victim card. The audience's audible gasps only fueled my superiority. I believed I was surrounded by bleeding hearts who couldn't appreciate the hard work of maintaining an upscale community. Judge Judy's initial questions were deceptively gentle. She asked about my background, my HOA qualifications, my understanding of property law. I answered with increasing confidence. Your Honor, I've been president for 8 years because I'm the only one willing to make tough decisions. These people need structure, boundaries. Without enforcement, property values collapse. The turning point came when she pressed me about the escalating fines and legal fees that nearly bankrupted the Rodriguez family. My response revealed my contempt for anyone who challenged me. Judge, these people knew the rules when they moved in. If they can't afford to maintain their property, maybe they shouldn't live in Willowbrook Estates. Actions have consequences. Then she asked the question that sealed my fate. Mrs. Mitchell, in your 8 years as HOA president, how many families have moved out specifically because of violations and fines you imposed? My answer came without hesitation or remorse. 17. And the neighborhood is better for it. We maintain standards by removing people who can't meet them. The silence was deafening. Even I seemed to realize I'd revealed something ugly, but my arrogance wouldn't let me back down. That's when Judge Judy leaned forward with that expression regular viewers knew meant someone was about to be destroyed. That's very interesting, Mrs. Mitchell. Before we continue, I think there are some things about your background that might be relevant to your qualifications as HOA president. The transformation in my face was instant. The smug confidence that had carried me through the entire hearing evaporated as she opened a thick folder marked with my full legal name. Mrs. Karen Elizabeth Mitchell, formerly Karen Elizabeth Thompson, you have quite an interesting criminal history. My mouth fell open as she continued with surgical precision. Embezzlement from the Riverside Community Center where you served as treasurer, $47,000 stolen from the Children's Program Fund. Fraud charges for running a fake charity scam that bilked elderly residents out of their savings. And my personal favorite, impersonating a licensed real estate agent to collect illegal fees from home buyers. The courtroom erupted in gasps as my carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. Judge Judy wasn't finished. You served 18 months in state prison and were released just 3 years before moving to Willowbrook Estates. Tell me, Mrs. Mitchell, did your HOA board know they were electing a convicted felon as their president? My voice came out as a strangled whisper. That's in the past. I've changed. Her response was swift and merciless. Have you? Because using your position to steal money from neighbors through fraudulent fines sounds exactly like your old pattern of behavior. The courtroom erupted in chaos as I stumbled out of my chair, my face ashen, my hands shaking. The woman who'd walked in believing she was untouchable had just been exposed to millions of viewers. And in that moment, I knew Karen Mitchell, HOA tyrant, was finished.